The snow fell heavy on Christmas Eve in Manhattan, each flake catching the glow of the penthouse windows where Maya Richardson stood with one hand pressed against her 7-month belly and the other holding divorce papers that still smelled of fresh ink. "Sign them." Marcus Webb's voice was cold, clinical, the same tone he used when firing employees at his hedge fund. He stood by the marble fireplace in his Tom Ford suit, every inch the Wall Street golden boy who'd swept Maya off her feet 3 years ago. Back when he'd called her beautiful, back when her dark skin and natural hair had been exotic and exciting, back before he'd met Sienna. Sienna Chen perched on the white leather sofa like she belonged there, her delicate features arranged in false sympathy, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. 24 years old to Maya's 31, she represented everything Marcus had decided he wanted instead. Youth. Ambition. A woman who wouldn't get stretch marks or talk about nursery colors when he was trying to close deals. "Marcus, it's Christmas Eve." Maya's voice cracked despite her best efforts. "I'm pregnant with your child. Can't this wait until after the holidays?" "That's exactly why it can't wait." He crossed his arms, his wedding ring already conspicuously absent from his finger. "Sienna's pregnant too. 3 months. We want to get married before she starts showing, and I need you out of this apartment by New Year's. My attorney says the prenup makes this simple, so just sign the papers and we can all move forward." The words hit Maya like physical blows. Sienna was pregnant. Marcus wanted her out in a week. The prenup she'd signed at 28, so in love and trusting, would leave her with almost nothing from their 3-year marriage. "You told me you were working late." Maya looked at Sienna, really looked at her. "All those nights he said he was closing deals, we were closing deals." Sienna's smile was sharp as glass. "Marcus and I work very well together. In the office and out of it. You wouldn't understand, Maya. You never really fit into our world anyway." Our world. The words stung because they were partially true. Maya had tried so hard to fit into Marcus's finance bro universe, had sat through countless dinners where she was the only black face at tables full of Wall Street titans, had smiled through microaggressions and assumptions that she was a diversity hire at the museum where she worked as a senior curator. She'd made herself smaller, quieter, more accommodating, all while Marcus's parents made passive-aggressive comments about their future children's hair texture and whether Maya really understood their family's standards. "I need you to understand something." Marcus moved closer, and Maya could smell Sienna's perfume on his collar. "This marriage was a mistake. We both know it. You're a nice woman, Maya, but you're not built for this life. Sienna gets it. She's ambitious, she's hungry, she wants the same things I want. You just want to play house and have babies. That's fine for some people, but I'm building an empire here." "An empire." Maya's laugh was bitter. "Marcus, your hedge fund manages $200 million. That's successful, yes, but let's not pretend you're running Goldman Sachs." His face flushed with anger. "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't support my vision. Sienna believes in me. She doesn't diminish what I'm building. I'm not diminishing anything. I'm just saying that serving your pregnant wife with divorce papers on Christmas Eve suggests your empire might be built on a foundation of cruelty." Maya felt the baby kick, as if agreeing with her. "What about our daughter, Marcus? What about Zoe?" They'd already picked the name. Zoe Grace Webb. Maya had a nursery planned, a crib ordered, tiny clothes washed and folded with such hope for their future as a family. "I'll provide for the child, obviously." Marcus pulled out his phone, already bored with the conversation. "The prenup specifies child support calculations. You'll get what you're entitled to. But Maya, be realistic. You'll probably want to move back home anyway. Raise the baby around your family. Isn't that what your people prefer?" "Your people." The mask was fully off now. "My people?" Maya's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Say what you really mean, Marcus." He had the grace to look uncomfortable for half a second. "I just mean you'd probably be more comfortable somewhere less expensive than Manhattan." This city is brutal for single mothers, and on a curator's salary, you know what's brutal? Finding out my husband has been cheating on me for months while I was growing his child. Finding out he's already planning his next wedding while I'm still wearing my wedding ring. Finding out that the man I loved never actually saw me as an equal partner. Maya set the divorce papers on the counter carefully, her hands steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. I need to make a phone call. I'll sign your papers, Marcus, but not tonight. Give me until after Christmas. Maya, after Christmas, Marcus. That's 2 days. Surely your empire can wait 48 hours. After he left with Sienna, both of them laughing about their New Year's Eve wedding plans as they walked out the door, Maya stood alone in the penthouse she'd decorated with such care. The Christmas tree in the corner mocked her with its cheerful lights. The stockings hung by the fireplace had M&M embroidered on them, Marcus and Maya, a unit that no longer existed. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed a number she hadn't called in 3 years. Not since Marcus had convinced her that distance from her overbearing family would be good for their marriage. Not since she'd chosen her husband over the brothers who'd raised her after their parents died when Maya was 16. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered, cautious and hopeful. Maya? That really you, little sister? And then Maya broke. Not delicate tears but huge, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep in her chest. David. I need help. I need you. There was a pause, then David Richardson's voice turned to steel. Where are you? Are you hurt? Is the baby okay? I'm okay. The baby's okay. But Marcus, she couldn't finish the sentence. Say less. I'm calling Elijah and Jordan right now. We'll be on the next flight to New York. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and don't leave that apartment until we get there. You understand me, Maya? We're coming. After they hung up, Maya sank onto the couch where Sienna had been sitting just minutes before. She thought about her 3 older brothers, the Richardson men who'd built a fortune so vast it made Marcus's hedge fund look like a lemonade stand. David, the eldest at 39, who'd turned their father's small construction company into Richardson Global Enterprises, a multinational conglomerate worth $4.3 billion. Elijah, 36, whose tech investments and venture capital firm had made him a Silicon Valley legend. And Jordan, 34, whose real estate empire stretched across 5 continents. The Richardson brothers were known throughout the business world as brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely devoted to family. Forbes had called them the most formidable siblings in American business. Bloomberg had done a feature on their synchronized strategy and how they'd turned grief over their parents' death into an unstoppable drive to build generational wealth. Maya had walked away from all of it when she married Marcus. He'd made her feel like their success diminished her, like she'd always be the little sister if she stayed close to them. He'd gradually isolated her, and she'd let him because she'd been so desperate to make her marriage work. Now, holding her belly where Zoe kicked and moved, Maya understood something fundamental. She tried to make herself small to fit into Marcus's world. But she was a Richardson. Small had never been in her DNA. Her phone buzzed with a text from David, flight lands at 11 p.m. We'll be there by midnight. Hold on, Maya. Just hold on. She looked around the penthouse that would soon be Sienna's, at the life she'd built that had been so easily discarded, and felt something cold and certain settle in her chest. Marcus Webb thought he was discarding a powerless pregnant woman with nowhere to go and no resources to fight back. He had no idea he'd just declared war on a family that had never lost a battle. And he definitely had no idea that the quiet curator he'd married came from a dynasty that made his ambitions look like child's play. The Richardson brothers were coming. And when they learned what had been done to their baby sister, Marcus Webb's empire of $200 million was about to discover what real power looked like. The private jet touched down at Teterboro Airport at 10:47 p.m., 13 minutes ahead of schedule. David Richardson deplaned first, his 6'3" frame cutting through the December cold like a knife. At 39, he'd perfected the look of controlled fury, perfectly tailored charcoal suit, salt and pepper at his temples that added gravitas, and eyes that could freeze blood when someone threatened what was his. Behind him came Elijah, 36 and whip-smart, his designer glasses and tech-casual blazer hiding the kind of strategic mind that had predicted 3 major market shifts before anyone else saw them coming. And Jordan, 34, built like he still played college football, his easy smile completely absent as he checked his phone for updates. Cars waiting. Jordan's voice was clipped. Maya sent her address. Upper East Side penthouse. Figures this Marcus asshole would pick the flashiest neighborhood. What do we know about him? Elijah was already pulling up information on his tablet as they climbed into the waiting SUV. Marcus Webb, 35, runs Webb Capital Management. Hedge fund managing approximately $200 million in assets. Parents are Old Money, Connecticut, Arthur and Patricia Webb. Marcus went to Wharton, worked at several firms before starting his own fund 5 years ago. David's voice was mechanical, but his jaw was tight. Married our sister 3 years ago after a whirlwind courtship. Maya stopped returning our calls about 6 months into the marriage. And now he's serving her with divorce papers on Christmas Eve while she's 7 months pregnant. Jordan's hands were fisted on his knees. I'm going to kill him. I'm actually going to kill him. No, you're not. David's voice had the authority of someone who'd been making decisions for all of them since he was 24 and their parents' plane went down. We're going to be strategic about this. Maya needs us focused, not emotional. Fuck strategic. Jordan turned to his oldest brother. She called us crying, David. Maya, who never asks for help, who disappeared into this marriage trying to prove she could make it on her own. She called us crying. The SUV pulled up to the building, and David took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. We handle this the right way. We get Maya safe. We find out exactly what this Marcus Webb has done. And then we make sure he regrets every single choice that led him to hurt our sister. The doorman tried to stop them, 3 black men arriving after 11 p.m., even in expensive suits, but David's stare and Elijah's quiet mention of their attorney on speed dial got them to the penthouse elevator. Money and power had taught the Richardsons how to move through white spaces that didn't want them. They'd learned to wield both like weapons. Maya opened the door before they could knock. She'd changed into sweatpants and one of their father's old Howard University sweatshirts she'd kept all these years. Her natural hair was pulled back, her face swollen from crying, and her 7-month belly was obvious under the loose fabric. Oh, Maya. David pulled her into his arms carefully, and that was all it took. She fell apart against her oldest brother's chest while Elijah and Jordan crowded close, all 3 of them holding her like they used to when she was 16 and the world had ended. I'm sorry. Maya's voice was muffled against David's shirt. I'm so sorry I shut you out. You were right about him. You were all right and I was too proud to listen. None of that matters now. Elijah guided her to the couch, his tech genius brain already assessing the situation. Tell us everything. Start from the beginning. So Maya told them. About Marcus's gradual shift from devoted husband to distant stranger. About the late nights he claimed were work. About his parents' thinly veiled racism that he never defended her against. About Sienna Chen, the junior associate Marcus had hired 8 months ago. About coming home early from her doctor's appointment today to find them together on her couch, laughing about their Aspen vacation plans. He gave me these. Maya handed David the divorce papers. There's a prenup. I signed it when we got married because I was so in love and I trusted him. My attorney, well, Marcus's attorney, really, the one his parents recommended, said it was standard. But looking at it now, I don't get anything. The apartment is his. The car is his. I get some minimal spousal support for 2 years and child support calculated on his salary, not his actual wealth. I'd be lucky to get $3,000 a month. David read through the document, his expression growing darker with each page. This prenup is unconscionable. No independent counsel for you? No financial disclosure? Jesus Christ, Maya, this thing probably wouldn't survive a basic legal challenge. But fighting it would cost money I don't have. Maya's hands rested on her belly protectively. My curator's salary is good, but not lawyer money good. Not the kind of lawyers Marcus's family can afford. And I'm due in 2 months. I don't have time for a long legal battle. He knows that. Jordan had been silent, pacing the apartment like a caged predator. Now he stopped in front of the Christmas tree, staring at the ornaments Maya had carefully chosen. Where is he now? With her. They went to his parents' place in Connecticut for Christmas. They're planning a New Year's Eve wedding. Fast, before she starts showing too much. Marcus said. Maya's voice broke. He said I should move back home, that I'd be more comfortable somewhere less expensive than Manhattan. That my people would prefer it that way. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Elijah's eyes went cold behind his glasses. David's jaw could have been carved from stone. And Jordan looked like he might put his fist through the wall. Your people. David's voice was soft, which was somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. He said that to you. He's shown me who he really is for a while now. I just didn't want to see it. His parents never thought I was good enough. Too black, too ethnic, too from the wrong background. But Marcus convinced me he was different, that he loved me despite all that. Turns out the despite was doing a lot of work in that sentence. Elijah sat down next to her and took her hand. Maya, I need you to hear this very clearly. You are not powerless. You are not alone. And you are absolutely not going to raise your daughter on $3,000 a month while Marcus Webb plays happy family with his pregnant mistress. But the prenup, fuck the prenup. Jordan finally spoke, his voice rough. You're a Richardson, Maya. Did you forget what that means? Did you forget who we are and what we can do? I didn't want to be David Richardson's little sister for the rest of my life. Maya wiped her eyes. I wanted to be my own person. Make my own way. Prove I didn't need the family name to succeed. And you did prove that. David squeezed her shoulder. You have a master's degree from Columbia. You're a senior curator at one of New York's most prestigious museums. You built a career on your own merit. But Maya, family isn't a weakness. It's not something you have to prove yourself independent from. It's supposed to be your foundation, your backup, your army when the world tries to tear you down. I missed you. The words came out small, broken. I missed all of you so much. But I was too ashamed to call. Too proud to admit I'd made a mistake marrying someone you all warned me about. We're here now. Elijah pulled out his laptop. And we're not leaving until this is handled. First thing tomorrow, we're getting you a real attorney. Someone who specializes in high-net-worth divorces and prenuptial challenges. Someone who will make Marcus Webb wish he'd treated you with basic human decency. It's Christmas. Maya gestured at the tree. Everything will be closed. David smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Maya, honey, when you have enough money, nothing is ever really closed. Jordan, call Frank Morrison. I don't care that it's midnight or Christmas. Tell him we need the best divorce attorney in New York, and we need them yesterday. On it. Jordan was already dialing. Elijah, start digging into Marcus Webb's finances. All of it. The hedge fund, personal accounts, his parents' assets, where he gets his funding. I want to know every penny this man has and where he's hiding it. David was in general mode now, the same way he ran Richardson Global. If he's been living better than his salary suggests, I want to know why. David, this is going to be expensive. Maya's practical side was emerging through the shock. Fighting a guy like Marcus, going up against his family's money, Maya. David turned to her, his expression softening. Do you know what Richardson Global's annual revenue is? She shook her head. $4. $3 billion. With AB, Elijah's venture capital portfolio is worth another $800 million. Jordan's real estate holdings are valued at $1. $2 billion. Combined, the Richardson family is worth approximately $6.3 billion. We are not worried about legal fees, baby sister. We're worried about you and our niece. The numbers hit Maya like a wave. She'd known her brothers were successful, but she'd left before they'd really hit their stride, before Richardson Global had expanded internationally, before Elijah had made his first billion in tech, before Jordan had started buying entire city blocks. She'd been so focused on building her own smaller life that she'd lost track of how massive theirs had become. $6.3 billion. She repeated it like a foreign language. Give or take a few $100 million depending on the market. Jordan hung up his phone. Frank Morrison is sending his partner, Sienna Chen, to meet us here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. She's apparently the best prenup litigation attorney on the East Coast. Charges $1,500 an hour and has never lost a case. $1,500 an hour? Maya's eyes went wide. We could hire her for a year and not notice the expense. Elijah was typing rapidly on his laptop. Now, let's talk about Marcus Webb's actual financial situation. Because I'm already finding some interesting discrepancies. What kind of discrepancies? David leaned over Elijah's shoulder. The kind where Webb Capital Management reports managing $200 million in assets, but I'm seeing SEC filings that suggest the actual number might be closer to $80 million. And there are some offshore accounts that look very interesting. Cayman Islands, specifically. Elijah's fingers flew across the keyboard. I'll need more time to dig deeper, but this guy might be cooking his books. If he's committed securities fraud, that changes everything. David's smile was predatory now. Maya, did Marcus ever discuss his business practices with you? Any late-night stress about audits or compliance? Maya thought back, remembering things she dismissed as normal work anxiety. He was worried about some SEC inquiries 6 months ago. Kept having closed-door calls with his attorney. He told me it was routine, nothing to worry about. But he was definitely stressed. We'll look into that. Elijah made a note. If Marcus Webb has been lying to investors or misrepresenting his assets under management, the SEC would be very interested. So would his clients. We're not just defending Maya. Jordan's voice had taken on that particular tone that meant he was planning something. We're going on offense. This Marcus asshole thinks he can discard our sister on Christmas Eve? He's about to learn what happens when you mess with a Richardson. David stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Manhattan's glittering skyline. Here's how this is going to work. Tomorrow, Sienna Chen is going to eviscerate that prenup. We're going to prove it was signed under duress without proper representation. Maya, you're getting what you're actually entitled to, half of everything Marcus acquired during your marriage. But the prenup says, the prenup is trash and won't survive scrutiny from a competent attorney. Trust me on this. David turned back to face his sister. While Catherine handles the legal side, Elijah is going to investigate Webb Capital Management. If there's fraud, we're going to find it and report it. Jordan, you're going to look into Marcus's real estate holdings and see if there are any vulnerabilities there. What about his parents? Maya asked. Arthur and Patricia Webb have serious money and connections. They'll fight dirty. Let them. David's smile was cold. They've never faced the Richardson family before. Old Money Connecticut is about to meet new money determination, and I guarantee we're hungrier and smarter than they are. Elijah looked up from his laptop. I'm already finding connections between Webb Capital and some of Arthur Webb's business interests. Possible self-dealing issues, maybe some conflicts of interest. This family might be very dirty once we start digging. Good. David sat back down next to Maya. Now, here's what's going to happen tonight. You're going to get some rest. Tomorrow, we're meeting with the attorney. And when Marcus Webb comes back from Connecticut thinking he's got everything figured out, he's going to walk into a nightmare he never saw coming. David, I don't want revenge. Maya's voice was quiet. I just want to protect my daughter and make sure Marcus can't hurt us anymore. That's not revenge, baby sister. That's justice. David took her hand. Marcus Webb discarded you like you were nothing. He assumed you had no power, no resources, no family to stand up for you. He made a fundamental miscalculation. And now he's going to pay for it. Not because we're vindictive, but because people like him need to learn that black women, especially Richardson women, are not disposable. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. The shame and humiliation she'd been carrying began to transform into something harder, clearer. Her brothers were right. She wasn't powerless. She was a Richardson. And the Richardson family had built an empire by refusing to accept defeat. Okay. She squeezed David's hand back. Okay. Let's do this. Let's show Marcus Webb exactly who he married. Jordan raised an imaginary glass. To Maya Richardson, senior curator, expectant mother, and the woman who's about to make her ex-husband regret the day he was born. To Maya. Elijah and David echoed. As Christmas Eve turned into Christmas morning, the Richardson siblings stayed up planning strategy, drinking hot chocolate, and slowly transforming Maya's grief into something more productive. By the time the sun rose over Manhattan, painting the snow-covered buildings in shades of pink and gold, Maya felt different. Stronger. Ready. Marcus Webb thought he'd divorced a powerless woman. Instead, he declared war on a $6.3 billion dynasty. And he didn't even know it yet. Catherine Chen arrived at exactly 9 a.m. on Christmas morning carrying a briefcase and an expression that suggested she ate weak prenups for breakfast. At 42, she'd built a reputation as the attorney you called when you needed to destroy an unconscionable agreement. She wore a sharp black suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, and had the kind of focused intensity that made people straighten their spines. Ms. Richardson. She shook Maya's hand firmly. I've reviewed the prenuptial agreement your brothers sent me at midnight. I have thoughts. Would you like coffee first? Maya offered, her curator training making her instinctively want to be a good host even in crisis. I'll take coffee, but I'm going to start talking immediately because this prenup is an abomination and I'm personally offended it was allowed to exist. Catherine set her briefcase on the dining table and pulled out a marked-up copy of the document. First question, did you have independent legal counsel when you signed this? Marcus's parents recommended their family attorney. He said it was standard, that I should just sign it so we could focus on planning the wedding. Catherine's expression could have curdled milk. That attorney should be disbarred. Ms. Richardson, this prenup violates about 6 different principles of contract law. It's unconscionable, it was signed under duress, you had no independent representation, there was inadequate financial disclosure, and it's almost certainly going to be thrown out by any judge with a functioning brain. Really? Hope flickered in Maya's chest. Really? Look at Clause 7, you get 2 years of minimal spousal support based on an artificially low calculation of Mr. Webb's income. No consideration for lifestyle maintained during the marriage, no adjustment for child care expenses, nothing. It's designed to leave you struggling while he maintains his penthouse and his lifestyle. Catherine was pacing now, energized by her fury. And Clause 12 is particularly egregious. It waives your right to any appreciation of assets during the marriage. So if his hedge fund grew substantially while you were married, and I'm betting it did, you get nothing from that growth. Can we fight it? David asked from where he sat at the table with his brothers. Fight it? Mr. Richardson, I'm going to demolish it. This prenup won't survive summary judgment. We're going to ask the court to invalidate it completely, which means New York's equitable distribution laws apply. Maya is entitled to half of all marital assets acquired during the marriage. What does that mean in practical terms? Maya felt dizzy with possibility. It means we're going to calculate Mr. Webb's actual net worth, including any growth in his business during their 3-year marriage, any real property acquired, any investments made. Then we're going to demand your 50%. Plus child support calculated on his real income, not the artificially low number he's reporting. Plus legal fees. Plus potential punitive damages if we can prove fraud or concealment. Elijah leaned forward. I've been looking into Webb Capital Management's finances. I think Marcus might be inflating his assets under management to attract investors. The SEC filings don't match his marketing materials. Catherine's eyes lit up. Do you have documentation? I will by end of day. I've got people pulling everything we can legally access. Perfect. If we can demonstrate that Mr. Webb has been fraudulently representing his financial situation, either inflating it to investors or deflating it to his wife, that strengthens our case significantly. Catherine sat down and opened her laptop. Here's our strategy. We file an immediate motion to invalidate the prenup on grounds of unconscionability and lack of independent counsel. Simultaneously, we file for emergency spousal support and demand full financial discovery. We make this expensive and public for Mr. Webb. Public? Maya hesitated. I don't want to humiliate Marcus. I just want what's fair. Ms. Richardson, with respect, your husband served you with divorce papers on Christmas Eve while you're 7 months pregnant. He's already been living with his pregnant mistress. He's planning to marry her on New Year's Eve. He's forfeited any right to discretion. Catherine's voice was firm but not unkind. We're not trying to humiliate him. We're trying to ensure you and your daughter are protected. If Marcus Webb is embarrassed by the truth of his actions, that's on him. Jordan nodded. Catherine's right, Maya. Playing nice got you a trash prenup in an apartment you're supposed to vacate in a week. Protecting yourself isn't the same as being cruel. What's the timeline? David asked. We file first thing tomorrow when the courts reopen after Christmas. We're asking for an emergency hearing on spousal support and the order preventing Mr. Webb from disposing of any marital assets. With the Richardson name attached to the filing, we'll get that hearing fast. Judges tend to move quickly when they see this level of representation. Catherine smiled grimly. Marcus Webb is about to discover that divorcing Maya Richardson is very different from divorcing a woman with no resources. They spent the next 3 hours going through every detail of Maya's marriage. Financial statements she'd signed without reading. Property purchases Marcus had made in his name only. Vacations charged to business accounts that were clearly personal. The pattern emerged clearly. Marcus had been systematically hiding assets and minimizing his reported wealth to make himself look less successful than he was. He told his friends he managed $200 million. Maya remembered a dinner party where Marcus had been boasting. But when we were alone, he'd complain about how slow growth was, how hard it was to attract new investors. I thought he was just being modest and private. He was managing expectations. Catherine made notes. Making you think money was tighter than it was so you wouldn't question the prenup terms. Classic financial abuse. How did you two live during the marriage? Comfortably. This penthouse is $15,000 a month. We had a house in the Hamptons that we went to in summer, that was another $8,000 a month rental. Marcus drove a Porsche. We traveled first class. I had a personal shopper at Bergdorf's until about a year ago when Marcus said we needed to cut back. Cut back meaning you cut back while he maintained his lifestyle. Catherine was building a timeline. When did the affair with Sienna Chen start? She was hired 8 months ago. I think it started within a few weeks. Marcus became distant, started working later, stopped touching me. When I got pregnant 6 months ago, he seemed upset rather than excited. Now I know why. Sienna was already in the picture. So your husband was having an affair for most of your pregnancy, used marital assets to support that affair, and is now trying to divorce you before his child is born so he can marry his mistress. Catherine looked up. Ms. Richardson, I need you to understand something. What happened to you is not uncommon among wealthy men, but it's absolutely unconscionable. We're not just fighting for your financial security. We're fighting to establish consequences for this kind of behavior. What kind of consequences are we talking about? Jordan asked. If we prove Marcus used marital funds to support his affair, paying for Sienna's apartment, dinners, vacations, anything, that's dissipation of marital assets. the court can order him to reimburse Maya for half of those expenditures. If we prove he committed fraud in the prenup or in his financial disclosures, we can ask for punitive damages. And if we find securities fraud in his business dealings, we can report that to the SEC, which carries its own penalties. David's smile was sharp. I like the way you think, Catherine. I don't like bullies, Mr. Richardson. And I especially don't like wealthy men who think they can discard their wives like used tissue once someone younger comes along. Your sister deserves better. Her daughter deserves better. And frankly, other women deserve to see men like Marcus Webb face consequences. Maya felt tears threatening again, but these were different. Not grief but something closer to vindication. For 3 years, she'd made excuses for Marcus's behavior, blamed herself for their problems, tried to be more understanding of his stress and ambitions. Now, hearing Catherine lay out the pattern of his calculated cruelty, Maya understood that none of it had been her fault. When will Marcus find out we're fighting back? She asked. We'll serve him with our response to his divorce petition tomorrow. We'll also serve notice of our motion to invalidate the prenup and our demand for emergency spousal support. He'll probably get everything the day after Christmas. Catherine smiled. Consider it a late Christmas present. He's going to be furious. Maya felt a flutter of old fear, the instinct to make herself smaller to avoid Marcus's anger. Let him be furious. David stood and came to sit beside Maya. You're not alone with his anger anymore. You've got 3 brothers who've been itching for an excuse to demonstrate why people don't mess with our family. Marcus Webb is about to get an education. After Catherine left with promises to have all documents filed by 9 a.m. the next morning, the Richardson siblings settled into a strange Christmas day. They ordered Chinese food because nothing else was open. They watched Maya's favorite movies. They assembled the crib that had been sitting in boxes in the spare bedroom, the nursery Marcus had said he'd help with but never found time for. Jordan proved surprisingly good at following furniture instructions. Elijah got tangled in baby sheets and made everyone laugh. David found the tiny onesies Maya had already bought and went uncharacteristically quiet, holding up an outfit that said Daddy's Girl before setting it gently aside. We're getting new onesies, he said firmly. That asshole doesn't deserve the title. But she's definitely going to have Uncle David's girl, Uncle Elijah's girl, and Uncle Jordan's girl. Competition starts now. She's going to be so spoiled. Maya felt her first real smile in days. Absolutely. Jordan finished the crib and stood back to admire his work. Richardson grandchild? She's going to have 3 uncles competing to be her favorite. This girl's college fund alone is going to be worth more than Marcus's entire net worth. Speaking of which, Elijah looked up from his laptop where he'd been working throughout the day. I found something interesting. Webb Capital Management received a $50 million investment from a firm called Pacific Holdings 6 months ago. Guess who's on Pacific Holdings' board? Marcus's father? David guessed. Bingo! Arthur Webb is not just on the board, he's the majority shareholder. So Marcus's hedge fund is being propped up by his daddy's money, which he's not disclosing to other investors. That's a major problem. How major? Maya asked. SEC investigation major. Criminal fraud major. Lose your license to operate major. Elijah's smile was predatory. Marcus has been presenting himself as a self-made success when really he's just another trust fund kid playing with daddy's money. His investors have a right to know that. David pulled out his phone. I'm calling our securities attorney. If we're going to report this to the SEC, we need to do it right. But Elijah, keep digging. I want every piece of dirty laundry Webb Capital has. As Christmas evening turned into night, Maya found herself in the nursery, staring at the completed crib. Her brothers had transformed the spare bedroom into something magical, pale yellow walls she'd painted months ago, white furniture that Jordan had assembled, tiny clothes that Elijah had organized by size with his characteristic tech industry precision. You okay? David appeared in the doorway. I was so scared. Maya's hands rested on her belly. This morning, I thought I'd be raising Zoe alone in some tiny apartment, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, watching Marcus and Sienna live the life that should have been mine. I thought I'd lost everything. You didn't lose anything that mattered. You lost a man who never deserved you in the first place. David came to stand beside her. Maya, I need to tell you something. When you married Marcus, when you said you needed space from the family, it hurt. We all took it personally. But I should have fought harder to stay in your life. I should have checked in more, should have made sure you knew we were always here. This wasn't your fault, David. I chose to push you away. But we should have pushed back. We should have seen the signs. Marcus isolating you, cutting you off from your support system, that's classic abusive behavior. We were so focused on respecting your independence that we didn't notice you were being controlled. David's voice was rough with emotion. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm sorry we weren't there when you needed us. You're here now. Maya leaned her head on her brother's shoulder. That's what matters. And you're going to help me make sure Zoe grows up knowing she's loved, protected, and that her mother is nobody's second choice. Damn right. David put his arm around her. That little girl is going to grow up knowing her mother is brilliant, accomplished, and comes from a family that doesn't accept defeat. She's going to know her uncles would move heaven and earth for her. And she's going to know that the man who walked away wasn't strong enough to be her father. They stood in comfortable silence, listening to Jordan and Elijah arguing in the living room about something inconsequential. The sounds of family, of belonging, of home. Maya realized how much she'd missed this, missed her brother's constant presence and unconditional support. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She pulled it out, expecting another message from Marcus about when she'd signed the papers. Instead, it was from an unknown number. Just saw the news about you and Marcus. Want you to know he was talking about leaving you months ago. Told me you were dead weight holding him back. You dodged a bullet. Sienna. Maya stared at the text, feeling a cold fury rise in her chest. Sienna was actually gloating, still rubbing salt in the wound even on Christmas. What is it? David saw her expression change. She showed him the text. His jaw tightened as he read it. Forward that to Sienna Chen. His voice was ice. And then you're blocking this number. Sienna Chen just made a serious mistake. How so? She just admitted Marcus was planning to leave you months ago, while you were pregnant, while he was still professing to love you, while he was lying to your face about his commitment to your marriage. That's not just adultery, Maya. That's calculated, premeditated abandonment. It strengthens every argument Catherine is making about the prenup being unconscionable. Maya forwarded the text to Catherine and blocked Sienna's number. She felt a small sense of satisfaction imagining the attorney's reaction. This is going to get ugly, isn't it? She asked David. Yes. But ugly on our terms, not theirs. Marcus wanted a quiet divorce where he got everything and you got nothing. Instead, he's getting a very public reckoning with a family that has more resources, better attorneys, and a serious grudge. David squeezed her shoulder. You don't have to face any of it alone, Maya. We've got you. That night, Maya slept in her childhood bedroom that had been set up in the guest room. Her brothers had gone to her old apartment in Brooklyn and retrieved boxes of her things from storage, including the bed frame from her teenage years. She fell asleep surrounded by the people who'd raised her, protected by the brothers who'd never stopped loving her, carrying a daughter who would never doubt her worth. Marcus Webb's Christmas was probably wonderful, champagne with Sienna, celebration with his parents, planning a wedding that would happen in just 6 days. He had no idea that the day after Christmas, everything he'd built on lies and cruelty would start crumbling around him. The Richardson family had mobilized, and when they moved with the full force of $6. $3 billion and a unified desire to see justice served. The war hadn't started yet. But Marcus Webb's time living in blissful ignorance was measured in hours now. And once the first papers were filed, once Sienna Chen's legal machine began its work, once the Richardson brothers started applying pressure in all the places Marcus was vulnerable, there would be no going back. He'd thrown away his pregnant wife on Christmas Eve. Now he was going to learn exactly what that mistake would cost him. Marcus Webb woke up the day after Christmas feeling satisfied and slightly hungover from too much Dom Perignon at his parents' Connecticut estate. Sienna was still asleep beside him in the guest room, her blonde hair spread across the pillow, one hand resting on her barely visible baby bump. In 6 days, she'd be his wife. In a few months, they'd have a baby together. Life was working out exactly as he'd planned. His phone had dozens of messages, holiday greetings from colleagues, confirmations for the New Year's Eve wedding, and one email from his attorney marked urgent. He opened it while sipping coffee, expecting routine updates about the divorce proceedings. Instead, he found himself reading something that made his blood run cold. Marcus, we've been served with a motion to invalidate the prenuptial agreement on grounds of unconscionability and lack of independent counsel. Maya has retained Sienna Chen of Morrison Associates. She's also demanding emergency spousal support of $25,000 per month pending the divorce outcome and full financial discovery of all assets, including business holdings and family trusts. We need to meet immediately. This is serious. Philip Marcus read the email 3 times, his hangover forgotten in the rush of adrenaline. Sienna Chen? That was the attorney who'd destroyed 3 of his colleagues' carefully crafted prenups, who charged $1,500 an hour, who had a reputation for being absolutely merciless. Maya can't afford Sienna Chen. He said it out loud, as if speaking the words would make them true. He called his attorney immediately. Philip, what the hell is happening? How did Maya get Sienna Chen? That woman charges more per hour than Maya makes in a week. Philip Warren's voice was grim. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Sienna Chen doesn't come cheap, but she also doesn't come alone. Marcus, Maya's last name isn't Morrison. It's Richardson. As in Richardson Global Enterprises. As in the Richardson brothers who own half of Manhattan's commercial real estate and run a $4 billion conglomerate. The words didn't make sense at first. Marcus stood frozen in his parents' guest room, Sienna stirring behind him, while his attorney explained that his quiet curator wife was actually related to some of the most powerful black businessmen in America. That's impossible. Maya's family is from Brooklyn. She worked at a museum for $65,000 a year. She drove a Honda Civic. She didn't have money. Apparently, she had $3 billion in family money and chose not to use it. Until now. Marcus, she's filed a motion claiming the prenup was signed under duress without independent counsel. Sienna Chen is arguing that you deliberately concealed her need for separate representation and that the agreement is unconscionable on its face. And Marcus? Philip paused. They've demanded full financial discovery. That includes Webb Capital Management's books, your personal accounts, your parents' trusts if they've provided financial support, everything. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They can't look at Webb Capital's books. That's my business. If you used marital assets to fund business operations, or if the business appreciated significantly during the marriage, Maya is entitled to a portion of that appreciation. And Marcus, if there are any irregularities in how you've reported assets under management or how you've structured investments from family sources, there are no irregularities. Marcus's voice was too loud, defensive. Sienna sat up, looking concerned. Then full discovery shouldn't be a problem. But Marcus, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anything in Webb Capital's operations that wouldn't stand up to scrutiny from a forensic accountant? Marcus thought about the Pacific Holdings investment from his father, structured in a way that obscured the family connection. He thought about the inflated numbers he'd reported to potential investors, making his assets under management look more impressive than they were. He thought about the expense accounts he'd used to fund his lifestyle with Sienna, dinners, trips, gifts, all charged to business categories. Marcus? Philip's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. Is there anything I should know? No. Nothing. Everything is completely legitimate. Good. Because Sienna Chen is going to go through every transaction with a microscope. And if she finds anything questionable, she won't hesitate to report it to the SEC. That's her reputation. She doesn't just win divorces, she destroys people who've behaved badly. After hanging up, Marcus sat on the bed, his mind racing. How had he missed this? How had he been married to Maya for 3 years without knowing her family was worth billions? He thought back to their courtship, to the way she'd always deflected questions about her family, changed the subject when he asked about her childhood. He'd assumed it was typical family drama, maybe some estrangement over money or expectations. He'd never imagined she was hiding an empire. What's wrong? Sienna was fully awake now, pulling on his shirt. Maya hired Chen. So? Your prenup is solid. You said she signed it willingly. Chen doesn't care about what I said. She cares about invalidating agreements she considers unconscionable. And apparently, Maya has unlimited resources to pay for the fight. Marcus turned to face her. Did you know Maya's maiden name is Richardson? As in Richardson Global? Sienna's face went white. Richardson? The construction and development company? They're not just construction anymore. They're a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. And Maya is apparently the little sister of the 3 brothers who run it. Which means I didn't just divorce some powerless curator. I divorced into one of the wealthiest black families in America. But she worked at a museum. She lived like a regular person. She never acted like she had money. Sienna's voice was rising with panic because she was smart enough to understand what this meant. She was hiding from it. Or hiding it. I don't know which. Marcus stood up and started pacing. But now she's not hiding anymore. Now she's hired the most expensive attorney in New York and she's demanding full financial discovery of my business. Sienna, if they look closely at Webb Capital, what? If they look closely, what? Marcus stopped pacing. He couldn't tell Sienna the truth about the questionable accounting practices, the exaggerated investor reports, his father's hidden involvement. She'd panic, or worse, she'd realize she'd hitched herself to a sinking ship. Nothing. It's fine. The business is fine. I just don't like the idea of Maya's attorneys going through my private financial information. But it wasn't fine, and Marcus knew it. Philip was right to be worried. Webb Capital Management had plenty of things that wouldn't stand up to scrutiny from forensic accountants backed by unlimited resources. The Pacific Holdings investment alone could trigger questions about self-dealing and failure to disclose conflicts of interest. His phone rang. His father. Marcus, I just got a very interesting call from Philip Warren. Arthur Webb's voice had that tone, disappointed but not surprised, the sound of a father whose son has disappointed him yet again. You want to explain to me why Maya Richardson's attorneys are demanding full financial discovery that includes my business interests? I didn't know she was a Richardson. Marcus felt like a child again, making excuses to his perpetually disappointed father. You didn't know? You married a woman without doing basic due diligence on her family background? What kind of businessman are you? Arthur's contempt was palpable. Do you have any idea what the Richardson family can do to us if they decide we're their enemy? David Richardson owns half the buildings in downtown Manhattan. Elijah Richardson's venture capital firm can tank tech stocks with a single tweet. Jordan Richardson could make it impossible for us to operate any real estate deals in 3 states. I had a prenup, you had a piece of paper that's now being challenged by the best attorney in the field, backed by unlimited resources. Marcus, that prenup was designed to protect you from a gold digger. It won't protect you from Richardson Global. Arthur was silent for a moment. We need to settle this quietly. Offer Maya a generous settlement, apologize profusely, and hope the Richardson family is satisfied with that. But I'm getting married on New Year's Eve. To Sienna. She's pregnant. I don't care if you're getting married to the Queen of England. That wedding is postponed until we resolve the Maya situation. You don't declare war on a family worth billions while planning a public celebration of the affair that destroyed your marriage. Jesus, Marcus, use your head for once. After his father hung up, Marcus stood in the middle of the guest room feeling his carefully constructed plans collapsing around him. Sienna was looking at him with an expression he'd never seen before, calculation mixed with fear. She was smart enough to be running the same numbers he was. If Maya was worth billions and he was worth millions, if the Richardson family was backing her with unlimited resources while his own father was talking about settling quickly and quietly, "Are we still getting married?" she asked quietly. Marcus wanted to say yes, wanted to reassure her that everything would be fine. But the truth was, he didn't know. The wedding suddenly seemed reckless, a middle finger to the Richardson family that might cost him more than he could afford. "We might need to postpone." The words tasted like defeat. "Just until the legal situation is resolved." Postpone. Sienna's voice was flat. "Marcus, I'm 3 months pregnant. I'm already showing. We've sent invitations. The venue is booked. You told everyone we were getting married. And now my attorney and my father are both telling me it's a bad idea to marry my pregnant girlfriend 6 days after serving my pregnant wife with divorce papers." Marcus heard himself getting defensive and hated it. "Sienna, this is complicated. Complicated because you didn't bother to find out who you were actually married to." Her voice was rising now. "Marcus, I left my own relationship for you. I got pregnant thinking we were building a life together. I endured being called a homewrecker and a mistress because you promised we'd get married as soon as you were free. Now you're telling me to wait? Just until we settle with Maya." "Settle? You mean pay her? Pay the woman you said was dead weight holding you back? Pay her with what, Marcus? If your business is about to be investigated, if your father is worried about the Richardson family, where's this settlement money coming from?" The questions hit too close to truths Marcus wasn't ready to examine. He'd built his life on a foundation of confidence and ambition, convincing himself and everyone around him that he was a self-made success, that Webb Capital Management was a titan in the making. Now, facing the prospect of forensic accountants backed by $6.3 billion picking apart his books, he was starting to see all the cracks in that foundation. The money will come from somewhere. My father has resources, your father who just told you to settle quietly and postpone our wedding? That father? Sienna was pacing now. Marcus, I need you to be honest with me. Is your business legitimate? If Maya's attorneys start digging, what are they going to find? Marcus looked at the woman he'd left his wife for, the woman who was carrying his child, and realized he didn't know how to answer. Because the truth, that Webb Capital Management was propped up by his father's money, that he'd inflated his numbers to attract investors, that he'd been spending business funds on personal expenses, would make him look weak. And weakness was the one thing Marcus couldn't afford right now. Everything is fine. Webb Capital is solid. This is just Maya trying to get revenge. But even as he said it, Marcus knew it wasn't true. Maya wasn't the type for revenge. She was sweet, accommodating, always trying to avoid conflict. The woman who'd hired Sienna Chen and demanded full financial discovery wasn't the Maya he'd married. That was someone else. Someone backed by brothers who'd built an empire and clearly had no intention of letting their sister be quietly discarded. His phone buzzed with an email from Philip, emergency meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Sienna Chen has also filed a complaint with the SEC regarding possible securities fraud at Webb Capital Management. Based on preliminary information provided by Richardson Global's investment team. This is now a crisis, Marcus. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. The SEC. They'd called the SEC. Maya's family hadn't just lawyered up, they'd gone nuclear. What is it? Sienna saw his expression change. Nothing. Work stuff. I need to make some calls. Marcus left the guest room before she could ask more questions, his mind racing through possibilities. The SEC complaint would trigger an investigation. They'd subpoena records. They'd interview investors. They'd find Pacific Holdings and his father's involvement. They'd find the inflated numbers, the personal expenses charged as business costs, all of it. He'd called Maya dead weight. He'd served her divorce papers on Christmas Eve. he'd assumed she was powerless and desperate. And in response, she'd unleashed a multi-billion-dollar family with the resources and motivation to destroy everything he'd built. Marcus stood in his parents' marble hallway, surrounded by old-money Connecticut respectability, and felt the walls closing in. He'd wanted to trade up from Maya to Sienna, from a comfortable marriage to an exciting new start. Instead, he'd started a war he was catastrophically unprepared to fight. The Richardson family was coming for him. And Marcus was beginning to understand that all his ambition, all his confidence, all his careful plans meant nothing when facing people who operated on an entirely different level of wealth and power. He'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. And now he was going to pay for it. The emergency meeting in Philip Warren's office felt more like a funeral than a legal strategy session. Marcus sat across from his attorney, his father Arthur Webb glowering from a corner chair, while Philip laid out exactly how bad the situation had become. The SEC complaint is preliminary but serious. Philip had documents spread across his desk. Richardson Global's investment team has provided evidence suggesting Webb Capital Management has been misrepresenting assets under management to potential investors. Specifically, they're claiming you report managing $200 million when the actual verifiable assets are closer to $80 million. That's a reporting discrepancy, not fraud. Marcus tried to sound confident. It's fraud if you knowingly inflated numbers to attract investors. Philip's voice was sharp. Marcus, did you or did you not present false information to potential clients about your assets under management? The silence stretched too long. Arthur Webb stood up abruptly. Christ, Marcus. You lied on your investor presentations? His father's face was red with anger and something that looked like fear. Do you understand what this means? An SEC investigation doesn't just affect you, it affects every business Arthur Webb is connected to. It brings scrutiny to Pacific Holdings. To all my investments, Pacific Holdings is the problem. Philip interrupted. Marcus, your father invested $50 million in Webb Capital through Pacific Holdings 6 months ago. You didn't disclose the family connection to other investors. That's a conflict of interest that rises to the level of securities fraud. The SEC is going to want to know why you took family money while presenting yourself as an independently successful fund manager. Marcus felt sick. The investors got good returns, that's not the point. Philip slammed his hand on the desk. The point is disclosure. The point is honesty. You can't take undisclosed family money while telling other investors you're managing $200 million in independent assets. That's textbook fraud, Marcus. What are our options? Arthur's voice was cold now, the anger giving way to strategic calculation. Can we settle with the SEC before this becomes public? Maybe. If Marcus cooperates fully, returns the improperly obtained funds, pays penalties, and accepts whatever sanctions they impose, he'd likely lose his license to manage investments for at least 5 years. Webb Capital would have to shut down. And the divorce? Marcus asked, feeling everything he'd built crumbling. Sienna Chen has filed a motion for emergency spousal support of $25,000 monthly, to be paid immediately pending final divorce settlement. She's arguing that Maya maintained a certain lifestyle during the marriage and deserves interim support while the prenup validity is being litigated. $25,000 a month? Marcus felt lightheaded. I can't afford that. You told everyone you manage $200 million. You live in a $15,000 per month penthouse. You drive a Porsche. You're planning a wedding at the Plaza Hotel. You absolutely can afford $25,000 monthly. Philip's voice was brutal in its honesty. And here's the thing, Marcus. If you can't afford it, that proves Maya's point that you've been inflating your wealth and lifestyle. Either way, you look bad. What about the prenup? Can we enforce it? Not a chance. Sienna Chen has already filed an affidavit from an expert in family law stating the prenup is unconscionable and was signed without proper independent counsel. We have an email from your parents' attorney, the one who represented you in the prenup negotiation, where he explicitly tells Maya the agreement is standard and in her best interest without advising her to seek her own counsel. That's attorney malpractice and ethical violations. The prenup is dead, Marcus. Accept it. Arthur walked to the window, his back rigid with fury. How much is this going to cost us to settle? Depends on what Maya wants. If she pushes for full discovery and challenges every asset, if she seeks half of the business appreciation during the marriage, if she demands punitive damages for the affair and financial deception, we could be looking at $20 million or more. 20 million? Marcus's voice cracked. I don't have 20 million. No, but your family does. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Maya isn't suing you, Marcus. She's suing the Webb family wealth. She's going after the money your father used to prop up your hedge fund, the trust funds your parents control, everything. And with the Richardson family backing her, she has the resources to pursue every penny. Philip pulled up something on his computer. I need to show you both something. This is Richardson Global's corporate structure. The screen showed an intricate web of companies, holdings, and subsidiaries. They own commercial real estate, construction companies, investment firms, tech ventures. But look here, he pointed to a section. They also own controlling stakes in 3 companies that Webb Capital Management has listed as potential clients. And they own the building where Webb Capital's offices are located. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They're my landlord? You're 5 floors below Richardson Investment Partners. You've been literally working under their noses for 2 years. Philip's smile was grim. The Richardson brothers could evict Webb Capital tomorrow if they wanted to. They could call in favors with your client prospects and kill those deals. They could make it impossible for you to operate in Manhattan. That's the level of power we're dealing with. This is about more than money. Arthur turned from the window. This is about humiliation. Maya Richardson wants revenge for how you treated her, and her brothers want to demonstrate what happens when someone disrespects their family. So what do we do? Marcus asked, hating how weak his voice sounded. We settle. Fast. We offer Maya a generous package, we issue a groveling apology, and we hope that's enough. Philip started pulling documents together. I'm going to reach out to Sienna Chen today and propose a settlement conference. We'll offer Maya $5 million cash, full custody with generous visitation rights for you, child support calculated on your real income, not the inflated numbers, and a public statement taking responsibility for the marriage's end. I'm not issuing a public statement admitting guilt, yes, you are. Arthur's voice was steel. Because the alternative is a protracted court battle that exposes Webb Capital's fraud, destroys my business relationships, costs us tens of millions in legal fees, and still ends with you losing. We settle now, we settle quietly, and we pray the Richardson family is satisfied with that. What about Sienna? What about our wedding? Philip and Arthur exchanged a look. Postpone it. Indefinitely. Arthur said flatly. You're not having a public celebration while settling a lawsuit with your pregnant wife. It's terrible optics and it will infuriate the judge. Sienna will have to wait. She's pregnant with my child, then she'll understand the need for discretion. Arthur's tone suggested the conversation was over. Marcus, you made a series of catastrophically bad decisions. You lied about your business, you had an affair, you served divorce papers at the worst possible time, and you somehow failed to discover that your wife's family could buy and sell our entire legacy without breaking a sweat. Now you need to accept the consequences and stop making things worse. After the meeting, Marcus walked through Manhattan in a daze. The city that had once felt like his kingdom now felt hostile, full of buildings owned by Richardson Global, streets where Richardson brothers wielded more influence than he could imagine. Every corner seemed to mock him with his miscalculations. He returned to the penthouse to find it empty. Sienna had left a note, gone to stay with my sister until you figure out what you actually want. Call me when you're ready to be honest. Marcus stood alone in the apartment he'd been so proud of, surrounded by expensive furniture and the trappings of success that now felt hollow. In trying to upgrade his life, he destroyed everything. His wife was lawyered up with unlimited resources. His business was under SEC investigation. His father was furious. And the woman he'd left his marriage for had apparently realized he wasn't the catch she thought. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Marcus. It's Maya. Catherine wants me to tell you that we're willing to settle this quickly and relatively painlessly if you're reasonable. But if you fight us, if you try to enforce that unconscionable prenup, if you continue to disrespect me, my brothers have made it very clear they will make this their mission. Your choice. Be smart for once." Marcus stared at the message, hearing Maya's voice in the words even though she'd probably never speak to him directly again. The old Maya would never have sent a message like this. The old Maya would have signed whatever he asked, taken whatever scraps he offered, and disappeared quietly. This Maya was backed by $6.3 billion and three brothers who'd built an empire through ruthless strategic thinking. This Maya was done being small. And Marcus was finally understanding that the woman he'd discarded so casually had been the best thing that ever happened to him. He'd traded a diamond for fool's gold. And now he was going to pay the price. The settlement conference happened 3 days later in Sienna Chen's office, neutral territory where both sides could negotiate without the formality of court. Marcus sat between his attorney Philip Warren and his father Arthur, facing Catherine, Maya, and all three Richardson brothers across a mahogany conference table that probably cost more than his car. It was Marcus's first time seeing Maya since Christmas Eve, and the difference was staggering. She wore a navy maternity dress that looked expensive, her natural hair was styled elegantly, and she sat with the kind of quiet confidence he'd never seen in her before. More striking were her brothers, three men who radiated the kind of power that came from knowing they were the most formidable people in any room. David Richardson sat in the middle, clearly the leader, with steel-gray eyes that assessed Marcus like an accountant reviewing a failed investment. Elijah, to David's left, had the focused intensity of someone who could recalculate Marcus's entire net worth in his head. And Jordan, to David's right, looked like he was barely restraining himself from physically throwing Marcus out the window. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Sienna Chen began, her voice professionally pleasant in a way that made it clear this was a courtesy, not a negotiation between equals. "We're here to discuss terms for resolving the Webb-Richardson divorce in a manner that's fair to both parties, but primarily protective of Maya and her unborn child. We're prepared to make a generous offer." Philip started, but David Richardson held up one hand. "Mr. Warren, with all respect, you're not here to make offers. You're here to listen to our terms and decide whether you prefer to accept them or have this play out in court where everything becomes public record." David's voice was calm but absolutely unyielding. "We've done extensive research into Webb Capital Management, into your client Arthur Webb's business interests, and into Marcus's financial situation. We know things you probably hoped would stay private. So I'd suggest you listen carefully." Philip glanced at Marcus nervously. "Of course. We're listening." Catherine pulled out a folder. "Here are our terms. 1. The prenuptial agreement is declared void and unenforceable. New York's equitable distribution laws apply, which means Maya is entitled to 50% of all marital assets acquired during the 3-year marriage." "That's reasonable," Philip started. "We're not finished. 2. We've calculated that Webb Capital Management appreciated in value by approximately $15 million during the marriage, even accounting for the actual assets under management versus the fraudulent numbers Marcus reported. Maya is entitled to half of that appreciation, $7.5 million. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "I don't have $7.5 million in liquid assets, 3. Catherine continued as if he hadn't spoken. "Child support will be calculated based on Marcus's actual income once his SEC investigation is resolved and his real earning potential is established. In the interim, he'll pay $10,000 monthly in child support plus $15,000 monthly in spousal support for 3 years. $25,000 a month?" Arthur Webb leaned forward. "That's excessive, that's what Maya was accustomed to during the marriage." Elijah Richardson spoke for the first time, his voice clinical. "We've analyzed Marcus's spending patterns. The penthouse is $15,000 monthly. The Hamptons house was $8,000 in summer months. First-class travel, dining at Nobu and Perched regularly, shopping at Bergdorf's. Maya maintained a lifestyle that cost approximately $30,000 monthly. We're being generous asking for $25,000. 4. Catherine moved on. Marcus will issue a public statement taking full responsibility for the marriage's failure. He will acknowledge his affair, his financial deception, and his poor treatment of Maya. This statement will be published in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. Absolutely not. Marcus found his voice. I'm not admitting to fraud in a public newspaper. You don't have to admit to fraud specifically. Jordan Richardson's voice was dangerous quiet. Just acknowledge you weren't honest about your financial situation, you had an affair, and you regret how you handled the divorce. Unless you prefer we let the SEC investigation play out publicly, in which case your fraud will be front-page news anyway. The threat was clear. Marcus looked at his father, seeing Arthur's face tight with barely controlled fury. 5. Catherine wasn't done. Marcus will surrender all claims to any artwork, jewelry, or personal property Maya acquired during the marriage or brought into it. He will also pay Maya's legal fees, which currently stand at $180,000 and climbing. $180,000? Philip choked on the number. Catherine Chen charges $1,500 per hour. I've spent approximately 120 hours on this case so far. Catherine's smile was sharp. Plus forensic accountants, investigators, and various expert witnesses. Mr. Warren, when you go to war with the Richardson family, it gets expensive. 6. David Richardson took over. Marcus will complete a court-ordered co-parenting class and submit to supervised visitation with his daughter for the first year. He will have no input on her name, schooling, or major decisions until he's demonstrated consistent, appropriate parenting behavior. That's unreasonable. Philip protested. Marcus has parental rights. Marcus has the rights a court grants him after reviewing his behavior. David's stare could have frozen water. He served divorce papers to his pregnant wife on Christmas Eve. He moved his mistress into the marital home while Maya was still living there. He attempted to enforce a prenup that would leave her impoverished while he maintained his lifestyle. These are not the actions of a man who has his child's best interests at heart. Finally, Catherine closed her folder. Maya will retain her surname Richardson, not take back Webb. Her daughter will be named Zoe Grace Richardson, not Webb. Marcus's name will not appear on the birth certificate unless and until he completes the co-parenting course and demonstrates consistent commitment to his daughter's well-being. You can't keep my name off my own child's birth certificate. Marcus's voice rose. Actually, we can. Elijah pulled out a tablet showing case law. In New York, the mother has final say on the birth certificate if paternity is in question. And given that Marcus was having an affair for most of Maya's pregnancy and has suggested the child might not be his, I never said that. Your mistress said it. On a recorded call to Maya where she suggested that maybe Marcus wasn't even sure the baby was his. We have the recording. Maya's attorney can use that to argue paternity is disputed, which means no name on the birth certificate until DNA testing confirms Marcus's fatherhood post-birth. The conference room fell silent. Marcus felt everything he'd thought he was owed, his parental rights, his reputation, his business, his future, slipping away like sand through his fingers. What are our alternatives? Arthur asked quietly. You can reject our terms and go to court. David Richardson leaned back in his chair. In which case, we will pursue full discovery of every asset Marcus has touched. We will subpoena Pacific Holdings records and expose the family money propping up Webb Capital. We will call witnesses to testify about Marcus's affair, his treatment of Maya, his character. We will make this the most expensive, most public, most humiliating divorce proceeding of the decade. And the SEC investigation? Philip asked. Continues regardless. Elijah shrugged. But if Marcus settles quickly and demonstrates remorse, we might be persuaded to provide testimony that he's cooperated fully and tried to make things right. The SEC looks more favorably on defendants who attempt to rectify their mistakes. Maya spoke for the first time, her voice quiet but clear. Marcus, I don't want to destroy you. I don't want revenge. I just want my daughter to be provided for, and I want to be treated with the respect I should have received all along. Accept these terms. Be a father to Zoe if you can. But stop fighting me. You'll lose, and it will cost you everything. Marcus looked at the woman he'd married, really looked at her, and saw someone completely different from the accommodating curator he'd thought he knew. This Maya was a Richardson through and through, strong, strategic, backed by unlimited resources and absolutely unwilling to accept defeat. He'd made the worst mistake of his life serving her with divorce papers. Now his only choice was how much he'd lose in the aftermath. I need to discuss this with my family. His voice came out hoarse. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to accept our terms. Catherine checked her watch. After that, we file for full discovery, and this becomes very unpleasant for everyone. Choose wisely, Mr. Webb. As Marcus left the conference room with Philip and his father, he heard Jordan Richardson's voice drift after them. He's going to sign. They always sign. They just need time to accept they've lost. And Jordan was right. By 4 p.m. the next day, Marcus Webb signed every document Catherine Chen put in front of him. The settlement agreement that gave Maya everything she demanded. The public statement admitting his failures. The custody arrangement that put Zoe Richardson firmly under her mother's control. He signed because the alternative was destruction of his business, his reputation, any hope of a relationship with his daughter. He signed because the Richardson family had demonstrated exactly what happened when someone underestimated them. He signed because Maya Richardson, the woman he thought was nobody, had shown him that power wasn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it was quiet and patient, and absolutely devastating when it finally moved. 2 weeks later, Maya Richardson gave birth to Zoe Grace Richardson in a private suite at Mount Sinai Hospital. Her 3 brothers were there, along with Rebecca Hayes, in a room full of flowers that made it look like a garden. Marcus was permitted a brief visit, supervised by Jordan, where he held his daughter for 10 minutes and felt the full weight of what he'd thrown away. Sienna Chen never did become Mrs. Marcus Webb. She terminated her pregnancy and moved to Los Angeles, apparently deciding that a man under SEC investigation with negative net worth after his divorce settlement wasn't the upgrade she'd imagined. Marcus's father barely spoke to him anymore. Webb Capital Management closed its doors permanently after Marcus's license was suspended. But Maya thrived. She returned to her museum job with enhanced status, her family's wealth now enabling her to make major donations and secure her position. She raised Zoe in a beautiful Brooklyn brownstone surrounded by uncles who competed to spoil their niece. And she eventually, years later, after the wounds had healed, found love again with someone who saw her clearly from the beginning. Marcus Webb learned the hard way that some mistakes are too fundamental to fix. He'd looked at Maya Richardson and seen someone he could discard without consequence. He'd been catastrophically, expensively wrong. And every month when he wrote the child support check, when he attended his supervised visits, when he saw photos of Zoe growing up surrounded by the Richardson family's love and wealth, Marcus was reminded of the empire he'd tried to dismiss and the woman he'd underestimated. Some lessons cost more than others. Marcus's had cost him everything. And he'd earned every bit of that price.